All right, it is 12:01 though, so I think we will get going. Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. As Sal was just talking about, this idea came up was around us trying to plan a contingency plan for summer orientation and beyond, and as our world have sort of collapsed, if you would, around COVID-19 and figuring out how to do this. And so reached out to some folks, and here we are ready to do this. So thank you for joining us. A few housekeepings before we get going here. First and foremost, just please note that the webinar is being recorded. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. And we are going to post it out. I know NASPA Region 1 will post it out on their YouTube, as well as I'm sure NODA will be able to do the same and get this out to you. Second is, please just keep it. It looks like you're all getting used to this online stuff and Zoom, and but just real quickly, make sure your mics are muted unless called upon. We are going to save some time for dialogue towards the end of this. The chat is going to be, and Sal, thanks for mentioning that. Please start commenting in the chat. That I believe, at least in Google Hangout, that gets recorded. I hope it does in Zoom as well. Otherwise, this idea will not work. But we are going to collect any of the ideas that you have and things that you're working on your campuses there, and compile all those ideas and get them out to you and anybody else. So actually, if you want these ideas, put your email in the chat as well. And we'll work on over the next couple of days to pull that all together and get it out to you, as well as a copy of the recording. The panelists, myself included, are going to share lots of ideas and things that we're working on, but we know that we're only 5 people, 5 different institutions, and there's a lot of great ideas and people out there that could help contribute to this awesome task. So again, just start writing your ideas in there. Also put your questions in there. We have several folks that are monitoring the chat, and they'll help go through the questions and help the panelists answer them towards the end of this call. So please do that as well. We're going to spend some time sharing. Each panelist is going to introduce themselves and spend some time on sharing what they're working on and ideas. And I will tell you, when we started planning this and we had our first call, beginning the 4 of us, eventually the 5 of us, it was extremely helpful in just bouncing off ideas from each other right then and there. That's when we were like, this is our webinar. This is it. Is literally sharing strategies. And so I hope you find it as helpful, if not even more helpful, as we share more ideas here. And again, we're going to save some time for Q&A at the end. So that is our agenda. So we actually could go to real quickly to the next slide. It's hard, these webinars. Sal has the slide. I'm going to be moderating so that the agenda is there. I kind of just went through that. Without further ado, why don't we take a minute for each of the panelists to please just quickly introduce themselves. I'll start because I have the mic here. My name is Hank Parkinson, and I do work at Fitchburg State University as the Associate Dean for Student Development, and I'll talk a little bit more about Fitchburg State in my piece. So why don't we move on? Sal, quick introduction.
Sure. Sal Rizza. I serve as the Director of New Student and Sophomore Programs at Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven. And I also have the privilege of serving as the coordinator for Region 9 of NODA.
Great, thank you. Kathleen.
Hey everyone, Kathleen Doan Cannon at the College of Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. I serve as the Director of Orientation and Transition here, and I prefer she, her, hers pronouns.
So thank you, Kathleen. Ben?
Hi, Ben Trapnick from Framingham State University, he, him, his pronouns, and I'm the Director of New Student and Family Programs. I've been there for a couple of years as well.
Thank you, Ben. And Nakia?
Hi everyone, I'm Nakia Finley. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm the Assistant Director for Student Orientation and Student Leadership at Stony Brook University. This will be my 3rd summer as a professional staff in this office.
Thanks, Nakia. And I failed to mention that I coordinate our orientation program as well on our campus, hence my involvement in this and passion for it. So we're going to turn it right over to and kick us off with Kathleen to kind of talk a little about what's going on at the College of Holy Cross. What is this? Something came up on the window here. I don't know what this is. All right. looks like a poll. Sal, can you advance the slides to Kathleen's slides? And all right, awesome, Kathleen, go ahead.
Great, thanks all so much. So here at Holy Cross, you're going to see on this slide some context and a brief overview of who Holy Cross is. For the interest of time, I'm not going to read through all of these bullets nor all of the bullets on my other slides. A lot of information here just for your reference. So we did have an overnight June program for both students and parents, the focus being really on building connections. We did have one-on-one academic advising, but no course selection. This used to be followed up by a 4-day fall orientation program for all incoming students, kicking off with move-in day and concluding the day before classes start. So where we are going. So we are moving to a fully virtual summer orientation program. We are strategizing this around 5 modules that will be released over the course of the summer between June and August, about every 2 weeks. Our goal really being to try to be consistent in our engagement and interaction with the class. Let's keep them connected, engaged, and excited, and dosing information to them throughout the course of the summer. The college, so at Holy Cross, our president has shared with us that he is planning to announce in early July what decision will be for the fall. So that really is kind of impacting the information that we're sharing at these different modules. So in light of this, for our first 3 modules, we will be sharing very broad information in trying to paint the best picture possible for what a Holy Cross education is, what our community is, and what experience it can expect here without creating false promises for what the fall will look like, because we just won't know yet at that point. We are framing these around modules to try to get this more intimate feeling around kind of what's it feel like to be in class and to have conversations. Module 4 is where we're going to get into some of the more specifics about, okay, now we know what fall is going to look like in terms of the college's decision. This is what it means for you, whether we are in virtual or in person or in some hybrid. In this module 4, an important element is still that we're going to have those one-on-one academic advisor meetings as well. And that's something that's really important for us to maintain. So how are we achieving all this? So we've reviewed several platforms and we really struggled to find something that felt like it fit for us, that met our aesthetic interests. And we also didn't have a lot of funding at all. So fortunately, we have an ITS department that's been willing to help us home grow up our own platform. They're modifying what had been done for Accepted Students Day for our incoming class. So with this, what this looks like is on a particular day, so Saturdays through June through August, at a specific time, these modules will be released to the students and the parents who have pre-registered. There will be some pre-recorded sessions that are timed throughout the morning to be released that will also feature at the same time live chat feature options. There will be the capability to have some live webinars where presenters are still live there on camera to be able to answer questions such as this platform. And then there'll be content that can be populated based on people's particular interests or identity affiliations. So there'll be some content that's populated for all students to be able to pinpoint what they're most interested in learning more about, and some that will only populate based on, you know, if we know you're a first generation college student, for example, or a student athlete. Each module will have a framing video to kick it off and then a closing video to wrap it up and prepare for students for what they need to do next and what's coming next to them in the next module. Modules will be recorded so that anyone can later look back on them, particularly if you're not able to watch them live. In terms of how we're getting this content, we're being pretty directive with our campus partners in terms of what it is that we need from them and what information and conversations we want them to have. We are creating working groups that are not based on any singular departments, but are multiple areas contributing to a theme or to a conversation. We're really trying to emphasize this isn't about offices sharing who they are in their services, but experiences, feelings, connection, and community. So on that topic of creating connections, these are some of the strategies that we're using. Some things I just want to highlight here real quick before I pass it on is we really do feel like it's a best practice to have OLs involved throughout this. We originally had hoped to be launching modules, have orientation groups after each orientation module is released. to do some things that we used to do, like OL intros, and really provide and highlight our student OL's stories as a means of connection. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that, so we're shifting focus a little bit, and we'll be engaging student leaders on more of a one-off basis, pulling them into panels and showcasing their stories in other ways. Some other things I want to really kind of highlight here is in terms of student engagement and virtual programming throughout the summer, that's something as an institution we are creating strategy for that will feed into what we're doing with orientation and piggybacking off of that. So this isn't just a orientations responsible for virtual programming, but what as an institution are we doing for all of our students, and what specific additional content can we offer or programs can we offer to our incoming students. And then finally, in terms of accessibility, being the other key thing I want to highlight here is just that we are trying to do our best now to reach out to students to gauge what their accessibility needs are. If there are issues with access to computers or access to internet, our ITS department is willing to lend Chromebooks to families and help us navigate some of the internet connection issues, which I think will be really important for us, as well as our videos that are being put out will be closed captioned. So that's all I'll say for now. Happy to answer questions later on if folks have them, but I want to pass it off to the next panelist.
Thanks, Kathleen. I think Sal, you're up next. Yeah,
I muted myself now. Okay. Hi, everyone. Southern Connecticut State University. We're a regional public, less than 10,000 students. 40% of our students are transfers, primarily commuter student population. We had required overnight sessions in June, 5 sessions. Students were required to stay overnight. Parents and families attended a one-day session on the first day. We are fee-based, and students are and will continue to be pre-registered for their fall courses. For transfer students, we hosted 5 half-day transfer student orientation sessions in July and August, which were encouraged but not required. And we have a 2-day fall orientation program, New Owl Welcome, required for all first-year students immediately before the first day of courses, or first day of classes. First-year students were required, transfer students encouraged to attend. So we need to put that into a virtual format. So as of right now, we know for a fact that June will be virtual, and I'll talk about that in a second. We are 99% sure that we won't be doing anything on the ground in July. In terms of thinking all the way forward to August and our New Owl Welcome, quite frankly, I'm just not thinking of that right now. We're focused on our June and July programs, and we will continue to think about August as we learn more about what that will look like, because we just don't know what that will look like right now, and I'm sure all of you are in the same situation. What's not here is what we've already started. So starting last week, we had a group of about 40 student leaders making check-in calls to our incoming confirmed students, so our students that have already paid their deposit. And those check-in calls I think we had a list of 579 students. Those check-in calls were just what they sound like, checking in, seeing how they were doing, asking them about their senior year. It was more just to start to build some type of connection, in addition to an admitted students day we did a few weeks ago. But this was just a personal check-in from one student leader to an incoming student. We connected with about half, left a lot of voicemails, but the direction was not for us to be pushing what they should be doing right now, but more about just letting them know we're here and here's how you contact us. They're currently registering for our 90-minute virtual programs, which we'll be doing in June, and those 90-minute programs are really meet and greet opportunities more than anything else. They will meet what I'm referring to as their summer orientation groups. Parents and families are invited to join in the initial meet and greet of these 90-minute virtual programs. And our orientation ambassadors will be facilitating those conversations and really framing what the rest of the summer will look like. Similar to what Kathleen introduced, we're doing very much the same through Blackboard, which is on a bi-weekly basis. We're going to be introducing different modules or topics. Welcome basics, academic success, co-curricular engagement. And then we will have, I just thought it would be worth mentioning that our bystander intervention program, not anymore, will be introduced through the online orientation program. So in addition to that, our summer orientation groups will stay in place throughout the summer, and our orientation ambassadors will be connecting with them throughout the summer. Sometimes informally, they'll be making themselves available. All of them will have about 20 to 25 hours a week in which they'll be working on these things. And then we'll also be inviting them to either synchronous engagement groups throughout the summer. We're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff, challenges, social media things, all of that kind of stuff throughout the summer. And we will be having at least one virtual parent-family orientation program, platform to be determined. The way in which the orientation ambassadors will be meeting with their student groups is through WebEx. So that's what they will be doing. But they'll also be teaching them the other platforms that they may have to use if we continue to stay online. So there are a number of platforms that our instructors and our academic side of the house are using. So it's a combination of introducing content, encouraging social engagement, building a network, building that sense of belonging, and then also maybe intentionally, but not quite as obviously, teaching them all of the online platforms that they're going to have to use when they begin, if we continue to stay online. Transfer orientation will be offered in similarly, but all of the modules will be made available at the same time. We want to introduce content in pieces to first-year students with transfer student orientation. We're going to kind of make that all available simultaneously, and we'll also create groups for the transfer students, for our transfer students as well. Regular phone-a-thons, however we can to continue to stay engaged, postcards, phone calls to all students, mailers with swag items. Again, we hope for an on-campus new OWL welcome in September or late August. We're not sure if that will happen. We'll see. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that we are really focusing on all our events and activities being considered from an access perspective. So we recognize that all of our students will not have the same access to technology, computers, Wi-Fi, so on and so forth. So my apologies, I can't do anything about my dog barking in the background. Somebody has to be delivering something. But we're looking to do things synchronously and asynchronously. We will do our best to connect with students and provide them with support if we can. That is a lot harder than it sounds, but we will do our best. And all of the content, we're going to try to make it so that it could be done from a mobile phone and not necessarily a computer for those that don't have it. So we're going to try to make everything as accessible as possible. And lastly, we're really relying a lot on our student staff to be able to connect with students individually when that is the best route. Last thing, I'm sorry, pre-registration. So all of our students will be pre-registered for courses. Our advising team is going to be communicating with students how they access their schedule and how they connect with an advisor outside of all of these programs. So that is we're kind of using that as a separate entity. I'm going to stop now and move on to who's next.
Sal, I think it's yeah, thank you, Sal. I appreciate it. I think Ben's on deck.
Yeah, and I see a question. How are you paying your student leader team? Yeah, quite significantly paying them more than they would have been if it were just a traditional session. So all of the money we would have spent on catering and other things is just moving to pay for them. But it's half the size of the staff because of the direction we're going. And thanks for the question. I'll move on to Ben now.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much, guys. Again, my name is Ben Trapnick. I'm Director of New Student Programs, New Student and Family Programs at Framingham State. And we are in the process of moving all of our things online as well. So if you could just advance to the next one. There we go. So we are a small public institution in the state of Massachusetts, 3,800 undergraduate. The vast majority of our students are from the state of Massachusetts, and 37% of them are Pell eligible as well. We have pretty much a 50-50 resident versus commuter campus. 52% live on campus. In the past, we have had one-day orientations for our first-year students, meaning that they would come to campus and have an orientation session that will spend about 50-50 focusing on getting registered for their fall semester courses, and then focusing on some social agenda items such as inclusion, sexual assault, familiarity with some resources on campus, academic support, those types of things, as well as a limited amount of time about social connections as well. Our orientation was no charge. It's all based on our operating fees. And we also had a concurrent family guest session that is fee-based, that runs separately. So we keep the parents and the students separate, just like I believe everybody else does. And last year, we implemented a pilot program for our RAM-Ready portal. We used Blackboard last year, and we continued our connections with our students using that. We released information week by week using Blackboard, especially after orientation. We used it to help them get ready for orientation and take care of business that they needed to take care of. And then going forward from there is more about taking care of business, but also information that we couldn't put into the orientation program. We tried for years to reconfigure our orientation program and just came to the point that we just couldn't put it all in one day. So we decided to supplement that with our online portals. And again, like I said, our orientation program focuses a lot on academic advising, course selection. Transfer student orientation is 1 day as well. It's a little less than our first year orientation. It is solely focused on focusing on academic advising and meeting your academic departments and course registration. Students leave mid-afternoon once they get their courses selected. And then our 4-day welcome week, Black and Gold Beginnings, is our expanded social component for our orientation program that happens right at move-in. As move-in ends for new students on Saturday night, they move in, and then we start a whole welcome week activities that bring us right up to the start of classes. That's what we did previous years. Going forward this year, we have, like everybody else, made all kinds of changes to our program. So we piloted last year our Blackboard program, but this year I had already begun the process of moving from Blackboard onto a vendor. We went to Comevo. We had reserved funds for this and purchased the product back in December, and I had been building it out since about late January, early February. So I was lucky in that regard that I didn't have to scramble that I know so many of you are trying to do right now. So we were lucky. We did the purchasing process and the demos and had lots of fun doing that. And we settled on Comevo for a variety of different reasons. One of them largely being the fact of the cost of what we could afford. And in this portal, we're doing a couple different things. One, we're trying to really help them understand how to take care of business, get on the forms they need to do, prepare for registration, prepare for their virtual advising day, because there's no longer an in-person orientation day in June. And what happens in August has yet to be remains to be seen, but we've switched that to a virtual advising day. So there has to be some preparation for that as well. And that will strictly be just getting your classes for the fall semester, meeting with your faculty, and this will all be online in Zoom, utilizing Zoom and moving people from room to room. In the portal, we will spend time talking about resources. We'll have how-to videos that they can refer to later. Largely, however, the RAM-Ready portal will launch essentially in about 2 weeks, and it will be a preparation for the advising day, and all the information that we have will be used for that. And then we will be rolling some information out after that. But what happens on the virtual advising day is we focus on a lot of the graduation, general education, and major requirements that all students have to be learning about. We'll introduce them to their academic department and the faculty in there. And then we will spend time advising them. And transfer students will register that day. First year students will register all together on another day. They'll leave their virtual advising day and then come back virtually at 9 o'clock on another day, and they'll all register at once like our current students do. And then we will spend the next 2 days, 3 days actually, solving any issues that arise with registration. They'll call in or they'll email in, and we will solve those issues. And then after that, we are working very hard to really establish those social connections using social media and our orientation leaders. Our orientation leaders are being trained. As soon as the semester ends, they'll start training, and we will work with them to how they're going to be involved in our virtual advising day. They'll help with that. And then they will spend a lot of time in the summertime hosting optional social sessions on advising days. They will work in small groups to implement weekly social media contests with prizes that we will get to them one way or another. We work with campus resources to create social media campaign that will be posted throughout the course of the week. They'll be creative in using all of our social sites, and we'll coordinate posting content. There'll be meetups, there'll be Instagram takeovers, there'll be all kinds of things happening that will really work with our orientation leaders, because we really realize that's who wants to interact, who students want to interact with as their students. So, and we will train them on how they can help students get through everything they're getting through as well. And then we are still figuring out what's going to happen with our welcome week. We're trying to be flexible enough that we can create virtual activities as well as having some smaller in-person activities as well. So that's where we are going, and we are working towards right now. So I'll hand it back over to Hank.
Thanks, Ben. I really appreciate that. So next up is Nakia from Stony Brook.
All right. Hi, everyone. All right. So Sal, if you can advance the next slide. So this is who we are at Stony Brook. We are a large public institution. We fall under the SUNY system. Our student population, we have about 17,000 undergraduate students and 8,400 graduate students. For the purpose of this, my office only works with our undergraduate students. And this past summer, we saw just over 5,000 new students. 82% of our student population from New York. We're also about a 50-50 residential commuting population. So that's a little bit about who our students are. For our program, I'm going to just give you a summer 2019 overview because this has changed. This is my third summer working in this office, and it's already changed many times even throughout the summer. So I'll just give you a quick overview. We do charge our students an orientation fee. We are fully self-funded. So we run off of that fee. We have a pretty comprehensive orientation. There are two parts. Our part one is primarily for our, typically usually our advising for our transfer students. Their part one is a half-day session in June or early August. For our first year students, it's a full day session in July, and again, also in early August, where both populations will do some kind of transition conversations, programs, as well as they will complete their academic advising and registration. About a fifth of our student population are international students. So we have a week-long session that we hold with them the week before classes start. So they kind of have a combination of both part one and part two in terms of their programming. We do a lot of focus work for our international students just for their general success at Stony Brook in New York, in the United States. So we do a lot of work with just getting them acclimated. And then they also do their own advising and registration portion. And then we have our students come back all together for part two, which is the weekend before classes start. And we'll do a bit more mandated information that both the state and the university would like us to cover. So that's a little bit about what we did this past summer. Sal, if you can advance to the next one. What we are planning on doing for this summer, we are still charging our students an orientation fee, which is typically the question that we've gotten a lot of. If it's online, why do we need to charge it? Why do we need to charge students? Because we are still doing just as a comprehensive program as possible. We are working with Advantage Design Group for our online orientation. We have 8 modules that we are working through. The first 6 will be what our typical part one orientation would have been, actually a bit more expanded than it would have been. And our part two is what we would have covered in our opening weekend. So like other folks, we're doing some welcome and intros. We're talking about academic requirements. We're talking about campus life. We are seeing a lot of students who are impacted by COVID. So we are making sure that we are emphasizing self-care and what kind of support students have at Stony Brook, as well as just their general success. So those are part of our online information for part one, and then part two is students' rights and responsibilities and other resources that they can gather for the part two. We are also having some virtual group activities, both with our orientation leader staff, with our campus partners, with as many folks as we can get to kind of join in. We're doing both open sessions and required sessions. The required sessions are the small group and individual sessions that they'll have with their orientation leaders via Zoom. And then the open sessions will be through Platform Q, which is a platform our admissions office was already working with for their virtual conversations and other webinar-based things that they've been doing. Before we moved to a virtual platform for everything, we had already decided that our first year students were going to be pre-registered. We tested it out in the winter and decided that's where we were moving forward for the remainder of my time now with our program. We were outgrowing our spaces anyway, so this worked out. It's strange to say, but this actually worked out pretty well for us, both to be able to get Advantage Design Group as our platform and to push forward with our pre-registration for our first year students. Our transfer students will still be doing some form of one-on-one advising or just general advising if it's not one-on-one with their specific advising offices, and our international students will be included in all of this. So before, where we only had our international students, really we just communicated with them via email, and then that 1 week in August, we are now communicating with them throughout the summer through small groups, through these virtual platforms, so keeping our students a little bit more engaged. So that's where we are going. Sal, if you can go to the next one. We do still have a lot of questions, things that we don't know yet. Our International Orientation Week, we still want to have, get our international students acclimated to the campus and to life here. We just don't know how yet. We are hopefully going to be told by June 30th, I think was the date our president gave us, what the fall semester will look like. And hopefully that will also answer some of those questions of what our International Orientation Week will look like and what our opening weekend will look like. We had already started talking about a plan to extend our opening weekend before all of this happened. So now we are creating a couple of different plans of what in-person with social distance guidelines would look like, as well as what an entirely online opening weekend would look like. We are also increasing our social media presence, similar to Ben. We know that our students are very comfortable being virtual, so we're going to try to tap into that as well. And I'm definitely looking for some information on how to increase that. So if anyone has some things they want to share with me, please do. We want to increase our social media. I have one more slide. Just selfishly, I also wanted some additional information. Our orientation leaders are a big part of what we do. We did have 50. I was pushing from my first summer to increase this number, and I finally got it approved, so I'm running with it. So we now have 60 of our orientation staff. And in the past, we used to do in-person trainings. We are now doing a Blackboard training. Not quite sure what that looks like yet. We're still figuring it out. And we're doing some smaller group sessions via Zoom. They used to work 29 hours a week, and we would max that out. And now I'm not really sure how many hours they'll work. I'm estimating about 20 to 25 hours per week. But also myself personally, selfishly, I'm also looking for some information about OLs if folks have that as well. And that's me.
Thanks, Nikki. I really appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. You can go right up to the next slide now. We're going to jump right in. I want to make sure we save lots of time for discussion. Like Kathleen, I'm not going to go through all the specific information about who we are and what we did. You can see it there in the slide. Similar to everybody else, though, that's been on this panel, is we had in-person family student orientations and had really great participation. Falcon Experience is our fall opening or fall orientation. We call it the Falcon Experience. So similar to you all, again, that welcome back weekend, week, that type of stuff. But if we could get into the next slide, Sal, which I think is really why we're all here. Okay, where we're going. So we have several different contingency plans in the works right now. We are actually holding on to the idea of having an in-person orientation in late July and August. Obviously, we're waiting for guidance from the government and health officials. If they approve us to be in person in groups, we have ready to go and been working on, again, an in-day single person orientation that brings students on campus, family members on campus, and there'll be a family program simultaneously with a student program. Idea is obviously to engage them in person like we all would prefer. Now, there's a strong reality that we might not be able to do that, and it might not be the safest to do that. We're certainly not going to go against the grain and do something that that we really shouldn't be doing. But again, we're preparing and have in our back pocket this single day in-person orientation. And I have that built, ready to go. All stakeholders have been part of the process. They all know. We are looking at about a 2-week decision-making term period to get orientation leaders on campus to do that. And we worked with our team. And again, everything is ready to go if we can, in fact, do that. However, we also are working on a fully online orientation program similar to you all and the panelists. We did invest in recently Advantage as well. It's an online platform. And I'm personally in knee deep with a team of folks in developing that right now, and the content and videos and all the things that we could do to engage students online. We will use that either way, whether we're in person for a single day, or whether we're if we have to be online completely, because we know also I think that we're afraid of, I don't know about you all, is that even if we have an in-person in August, there are going to be some family members and students that are not going to feel comfortable leaving their homes yet, and we respect that, understand that, and so we gotta have an alternative. And so we'll be launching no matter what, and hopefully early August, this online orientation that our students and families can engage in. Again, in addition to a single day, if we can have them on campus, or instead of. So we're working very diligently on pulling that together now and over the next couple of months. The other program that I wanted to highlight today that I'm really excited about, and it's similar to a lot what our colleagues have talked about here, is we're calling it Falcon Connection. Folks, we know right now that recruitment and retention is #1 on our minds. We're working really closely with our admissions office. They're very much part of this process and the recruitment piece. And so everything that we're doing up until this point has a recruitment lens on it, because we already knew that enrollment is down even pre-COVID-19 for all of us. That bubble has popped. The number of 18 to 17, 18-year-olds that are coming to us, that curve is going down and will continue going down. And now it is exacerbated with COVID-19. And are we going to be able to recruit and get students to come on our campus? Can we be open in September? These are all the questions that we have, right? And these are all the things that we're toying with. So it's so important for us, and I think all of us here today, is that we know that orientation programs have always been, but need to be, a yield event more than ever before. They are a recruitment event. They're an event to get students acclimated, transitioned, and excited about our institutions. And I was talking to our colleagues when we were planning this out. That's going to be the hardest piece, is the sense of belonging, the connections that we know that students make at our orientation programs. I'm sorry, but there's no way we could actually replicate that completely by virtual programs. We all know that. It's why we're all here today. It's why we're all trying to figure this out. So the Falcon Connections program is designed to do our best to make those connections early on and keep those connections and foster those and deepen those connections throughout the entire summer. Starting this week with a letter from me that will go out through our admissions team, who has the direct connect and the recruitment, the direct front line of our new students through us. We use Slate as our CRM. They'll continue to communicate this week, next week, and throughout the summer to our students to engage them through this program. So a letter is going out as early as this week. We're just getting, actually it is. And that'll describe sort of what we're doing, where we're at, We're not going to have a summer overnight, as many of you are not either. I don't think anybody's having a June program at this point, at least not in person, right? So we'll get that out. We are engaging our orientation leaders. We are very lucky that they've been selected and trained for the most part, although we got some more training to do on this. It's all right here. Thanks, Al. I'm just still on Falcon Connections. So we're training our orientation leaders via Hangout, Google Hangout, and getting them ready to launch this program. We are paying them for this experience, for engaging them over the summer, because I saw that question come up, and Sal got that. We are paying them. We are going to be breaking our new students up into small group by major. So there's some sort of affinity there, and it will be led, I have to spell it, not let, it'll be led by our orientation leaders. And they'll be assigned a small group. We're hoping around 15 to 20, 25 most. So it's a pretty manageable group for our summer orientation leaders. By the first week in June, no, let me backtrack. By next week, the week of the 18th, not next week, the week after, May 18th, I'm working with my president to get an introduction video out, and I'm working with our staff assistants, which are our lead orientation leaders, to get videos pulled together to welcome their new students. So from the students, peer-to-peer, in my opinion, is going to be more powerful and go a longer way than to me as an administrator. That's just my personal opinion and experience with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign these OLs to these small groups, and they're going to, the staff assistants, I'm all over the place. I get excited about this. The staff assistants are going to communicate out about this Falcon Connections program, encouraging our students to get involved and stay involved throughout the summer. Then the week after, the orientation leaders are going to send a personalized note home. We're working with our print services and mail center, where we're going to personalize notes home from the orientation leaders to their small groups, introducing themselves, saying, I am so-and-so, this is my major, this is what I'm involved in, and then, of course, outlining the program, Falcon Connections. And then by early June, hopefully the first week in June, they're going to kick off this program, again, through that letter, by connecting with the groups, getting them connected. The idea is that they're going to connect with the groups every 2 weeks. There are 5 major components or modules, 3 modules, but components of the program. And on those off weeks, their OLs are going to be asked to connect with their students via social media, email, however they see fit. So every 2 weeks is going to be a touch point over the 9 weeks of the summer, leading up to the end of August to hopefully our fall program. And so our modules are similar to what you have seen. The content, the first one will be around business. So, really time-sensitive information, billing, deposits, housing information, things like that, financial aid, our Web 4, which is our registration, things that we know students usually get in June that really need early on in the summer will get delivered in that first module. The second module, actually, I've since the slide flip-flop, will be about student life and engagement. So again, covering and offering student support services, academic support, engagement, like getting involved in students. And then the third module towards the end of the summer, we're going to engage in the content around academic life, the expectations of academics, life in a classroom, that type of stuff. And then, of course, highlighting our academic support services. Now, I want to make clear, Falcon Connections, although we're going to deliver content in these modules, the content's going to be delivered softly. We're going to deliver it out through the orientation leaders, through sharing web links, maybe some Instagram Live, those types of things. The idea, though, is about connection, engagement. Content is secondary in this program. Again, will be delivered. It is important that we get the information out and start engaging them in the life of Fitchburg State. But our main focus is going to be about the orientation leaders creating a relationship with these students throughout the whole summer, and that is hopefully going to be the main focus. I saw a question earlier about how you're going to hold the students accountable. Well, that's tough. We're not mandating this. We're not going to require it. I think that's going to be a turnoff. We're going to highly encourage it. We're going to incentivize it. I think we're working on creating a point system where every program or every time there's a connection, OLs will actually track that, and then we'll put into a raffle at the end of the summer for high stake, maybe it's books for a semester or tuition discount, really things that we know our students are gonna have appreciation for. So we're teasing that out as well. So that is the Falcon Connections program in a nutshell. There's a lot of information there. For the fall opening and orientation, like Sal and others on this panel, we're thinking about that. We're working on contingency plans, but we're not as far as long in that for today's webinar. But we will be coming up with, you know, if we're going to be in person, what does that look like? We got obviously going to have to look at social distancing, hand sanitizer, maybe PPEs, those types of things, small group, less, you know, spreading out groups, less chairs in a room. I loved, Nakia, your idea of maybe staggering and offering multiple welcome back. So I'm gonna take that idea today. We're also looking at hybrid models. So maybe some of it is online or virtual and some of it will be in small group on person. Again, I think similar to all of us here today. So I'm gonna stop there. That brings us up to about 15 minutes worth of Q&A. I know it's not a ton of time, but you know, again, hopefully we get some information in. So we do have if you want to go to our next slide, I think it's Q&A, right? Yeah, perfect. So I bet you there's a ton in here. An hour webinar goes by so fast. I do hope that you found these ideas helpful. We're going to try to tackle as much as we can in the next 10 or 15 minutes that we have left. Patrick, do you want to kick us off? I know you've been monitoring the chat for us and trying to help us get information so we could try to answer those questions.
A lot of the questions have been answered as folks have been kind of going along by some panelists and then also those that are attending today. A lot of the conversation that maybe some of the panelists might want to speak to and some of the panelists also are asking questions about is OL training and plans for that, as well as plans for content delivery for OL training. So I don't know if any of the panelists want to speak to that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll take a quick stab, but then definitely open it up to the panelists. So yeah, absolutely. I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. We're in a different position maybe than many of you. We select our orientation leaders back in October, November, and we go into the holiday break with them intact. And then we also provide a overnight retreat in January, and then we do spring training. And we actually did continue doing spring training virtually. The last two were done through via Google Hangouts. One of my staff members, though, that works on the training is working on some additional, right now, virtual Google Hangout training that we're going to have to do to prep for these things that we're getting ready to do. So I'll turn it over. Anybody else have anything else to add? Kathleen, Sal, Nakia, or Ben?
So we just literally hired all of our orientation leaders. We did it, our orientation coordinator in our office, AJ Brent, spent about 2 weeks doing individual interviews accompanied by our senior orientation leader, and then managed to have a group process. God bless her. She did a group process. She split it out over 2 sessions, and which maintained the same process we've had in years past, an individual interview and a group process. So she hired them that way, and they're in the process of, now the complicated part for us as a state institution, now the paperwork comes into play for the payroll.
Yeah.
So we're working on that, but she's also designing with our graduate student, the training session that she's going to be doing remotely, obviously, because we can't have everybody on campus in Massachusetts either. So she's working on a whole bunch of different things that really help to prepare for students to be able to interact with our orientation leaders, to be able to interact with them. She's preparing them for the social connection piece that's going to be happening in late June and July and through August. She's providing them space to process everything that's been going on with this COVID and how they're feeling and how they're dealing with it, and how to help students process that as well through those social connection pieces. She's going through a lot of the same, they're developing some of the same training sessions that they normally would about communicating with students, but also just about Zoom and technical issues. So we're trying hard to maintain the social connection piece and the student leadership piece as much as we can. It still is a student leadership position, as much as we need them to do transactional types of things for our orientation. We also need them to be able to connect with our students. So we're working on that as well. I don't have the exact specifics because honestly, it's still being developed. But we are focusing a lot of those things, and So I'll pass that on to one of my colleagues.
Luke, why don't we, because there's probably lots of other questions, why don't we just have one or two of us respond, but each of the questions the next time our other colleagues can. Also, if you have solutions or thoughts, put it in the chat too, because obviously we're going to get, and again, we're going to do our best to. Does anybody know Zoom? Is it hopefully the chat? I know in Hangout the chat gets recorded as well. Hopefully in Zoom it does. Some good information there. All right. So what other questions we have, Patrick, that we could try to answer as many in the time we have left?
Another conversation that was happening in the chat was how institutions are holding students accountable and actually logging in and completing modules and things like that.
All right. Does someone want to take that other than Ben or I maybe, because we just spoke?
I can tell you what we're doing.
All right.
We are creating, we created a couple of additional holds that we already had on their accounts, but we added a couple more. So Advantage works with PeopleSoft, and they do their thing. As soon as the students are done, our initial orientation hold will be lifted. So that's how we're making sure our students complete their online portion. Our orientation hold does prevent them from registering. Our academic advisors do have the ability to lift it just to do the advising portion, and they'll put it back on. But that's one way that we're making sure our students are completing the online portion. We also have the ability to put those holds back on if students do not attend their small groups, which are required. So our orientation leaders will be taking attendance, and if they do not attend, that hold will be replaced on their account, and they'll have to make it up somehow. And the same goes for our part 2 of our orientation. We will, once we launch it in August, an additional hold will go on their account as well.
Great, thanks, Nakia. Kathleen, did you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, so at Holy Cross, we are not focusing so much on tracking the requirement and holding them accountable to that, as we don't really have a mechanism in place. And we also want to focus more on trying to get them to want to engage with us and feel that connection. So we do have the ability to track who is engaging, because each student will have a unique link to the platform. And we will be looking at that data more in the sense to try to make connections with those students who don't seem to be connecting with us. We also have some subpopulations that we're specifically going to be tracking and trying to form relationships with through peer educators. Those include some students who typically attend one of our pre-orientation programs called Odyssey. So Pell eligible students, first generation college students, and students of color. And so we'll really be more specifically looking at the ways in which some of those subpopulations are engaging to make sure that they're building connection and community and connected with us. Should we be transitioning in the fall to still being in online education, we will likely look more into that firm requirement to see who has received certain content, and also probably at that point transition to a platform such as Moodle that students will be engaging in anyway for their classes to make it a little easier for them. But for summer, we're tracking some of that, but we're not holding them firm to the requirement, if you will, or holding them accountable to that.
Thanks, Kathleen. I appreciate that. I think I saw, I'm not really following the chat, but it does pop up. I think Sal put a Google Doc out for people to share. That's awesome. They've got a good idea. So if you want to put content or stuff in that, is that right, Sal?
Yeah, so I hope if somebody could click on it to make sure it actually works, because I do have difficulty with Google for some reason. Thank you, Jess.
It works, yeah.
Okay, so that's there. And please feel free to upload any content there so that we could share information there. It's just one space that we could use.
Right, good.
The only thing I wanted to mention about accountability, which is, I put this in the chat, is that I'm being very mindful of what students have the ability and not have the ability to do. So we're really taking the approach of, similar to what Kathleen said, where we want to give them every opportunity to connect with us and check on them. It's still to be determined if there are pieces that they quote unquote have to do. But Hank, you had said that at this point, it's about building the sense of connection, belonging. This whole process is going to be about yield and connection. And we want to make this as seamless and as accessible as possible. Not to say we don't do that on our on-the-ground programs normally, With our on-the-ground programs, I think we seem to be taking, we normally take a different tone or approach to it. It just feels different right now. So I think we're approaching it a little bit differently as well. But that's the only thing that I would add to that.
Ben, you have something to add? I'd like to get to one more
Yeah.
question too, if we can.
And I just want to build off a little bit what Sal was saying is the access piece is a big part, something that everybody should be considering as well. I know for us as well as we have been learning about our own students and the trouble they've been experiencing, that when we moved off campus and they had to do online, we're helping people finding hotspots, finding out that people only have one laptop and multiple siblings in their room, in their house that they need to be on during school times, which for many of orientation programs probably won't be an issue, but still, you know, the sharing of computers and access is something that really needs to be considered a lot. And, you know, that's where the accountability piece comes into as well, is how much can you account for when you don't know who has the ability to access your stuff and that experience. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
No, that's perfect, Ben. Thank you. Patrick, is there anything other like theme or anything that came up that we could maybe hit up before we wrap up this webinar?
Just another one that came up that there was not much conversation on in the chat was talking about how to engage family members if you are using an institutional platform, kind of how that's working for any of the panelists.
Yeah, you're right. We did not hit that today. So thank you for pointing that out. Does anybody on the panel? I am thinking about it. I have some ideas, but it hasn't been as developed as the student piece because that, for me, has been my priority. But we got to be engaging our families too. Ben, you have some?
Yeah, we're developing a plan right now. We are going to, through using Comevo, we're going to develop another module. We get, you know, with the program we purchased, we can create up to 10 modules. So we'll create a parent module where it'll be static. There will not be live sessions on there at all. People are creating their presentations right now. We're organizing that. They'll email it off so people can go through on their self-paced. I'm not going to build quizzes into there, anything like that. You just have access to it. And then over the summertime, we're going to be doing 4 or 5 live sessions where we'll invite certain offices that are very relevant, that parents really want to hear from and talk to, as an opportunity to engage, ask questions, you know, just engage with me, because I do a lot of parent and family programs throughout the summertime, throughout the school year. So it's a way for me to connect with them and start building that process right now. And they'll be able to engage with certain resources and offices during those live sessions as well.
Yeah, we're also utilizing our online platform for our families. Advantage is able to open up the modules that we'll be showing for students. So they'll have essentially an open link to see what that content is, so that families can also feel included. We are also using Platform Q. That's actually the reason we're using Platform Q is for our family members to do some live sessions with our campus partners. And we have, I think, about 15 or so planned. It's ambitious, but we have a lot planned, and I can share that list of our campus partners as well, what we plan on targeting during those.
Great, thanks, Nakia. All right, well, that takes us, it's 12:58, so I think we're gonna have to wrap this up. I'm very conscious of our time frame and that. I wanna thank the panel for their time and energy and expertise today. Kathleen, Sal, Ben, Nakia, really appreciate it. I hope if you guys could help me thank them. I don't know, just maybe putting a little quick chat out there. This is important stuff, and I really appreciate you. I was just scrolling through. There's a lot of people on this, which is pretty awesome, but also shows that we're all in this together. I know that sounds maybe cliche to what we say during this time, but we really are all in this together. And as orientation colleagues, I think it's so important that we utilize each other as resources, and we don't need to, we don't need this to go from scratch. Let's utilize each other and utilize the ideas here. And look at all the great ideas just from the 5 panelists. And also, again, I haven't been following the chat, but I see it popping up. I think there's probably lots of great ideas in there. I will work with the panelists to, again, sift through the chat and try to pull out all the information that you guys shared. We'll put it into that Google Doc that Sal shared, I think. And if you guys want to keep dumping stuff into that, we'll share that out with all the emails that you put into the chat. If you didn't put that in now, and we'll continue the conversation. There are a lot of other webinars on orientation, virtual orientation out there. I've seen them come up, and so hopefully we all can continue to learn together as a community. I wish you all nothing but the best, you and your institutions, your colleagues. I hope you stay well and safe, and I thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. Bye now, everybody.